Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pail, steel toe boots?
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure.
Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I close it, John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
What's going on? Bobby Manning, John Zanis. NBA free agency set to begin in less than half an hour. We figured, why not? Let's just chime in, do a little garden report, and talk about stuff. Normally this time of year, Bobby, is when we're like, we need to get somebody. They need help. And, and they don't. It's less about what the Celtics do and more about the teams who are chasing them and what they do. Interesting development potentially going on in Philly. We obviously know what happened with the Knicks earlier this week, and teams who are trying to load up and see if they can compete with the Celtics in the East. But Boston is relatively set as far as their roster goes, and very few things that they need to do and to tweak. And but doesn't mean they can't potentially add some pieces, retain some pieces, do some other things. I think most business regarding the Celtics is going to happen July 6th when a couple of their players are extension eligible, and we'll see what happens there. So we'll talk about all of it, and we'll follow the breaking news if there is any. Now, again, the NBA teams, the way it goes, Bobby, they can begin negotiating. This is like legal tampering in the NFL, but you can't technically sign. That being said, there's a strong belief we might know some stuff before we get off, before we go off the air here. So we'll see. I don't think teams want to get hit with that collusion situation, but there's some strong indications about where things might go, and we'll see what happens here. And if anything obviously breaks, we'll stay with it, and we'll move along. Celtics have a couple of deadlines today where we might know a little bit more about some of their internal guys. Bobby's stressing, and we'll talk about that for sure. Let you know real quick. Show as always, Garden Report here, powered by Prize Picks, the number one fantasy app in America, fantasy sports app. Deposit match up to 100 when you deposit 100. That's all you have to do. Check out Prize Picks. And where are we? Game time. Get in on the action with some tickets. Your favorite tickets in town. Red Sox are getting hot. And they are a fun ticket. You might want to check that out. Also, terrific concerts coming your way. Game time is the best way to get in on those seats. You download the app, use the code CLNS, $20 off first deposit with your first purchase once you make it. So, Bobby, let's get into it here in terms of the Celtics. Celtics, as we know, projected to be in that second apron, which means they're extremely limited in what they can and can't do. What are you specifically keeping your eye on today?
It's all about the centers. Centers are going to be moving like crazy. There's a lot of centers out in the market. And right now, the Celtics, given Porzingis' injury, have one center on the roster right now. So they not only need a third center, they need a second one as well with Porzingis out. And, I think we both tend to think, John, that Porzingis is probably going to be out longer rather than sooner, or returning further in the future rather than sooner. So they got to figure out what they're doing there. And I think the easiest answer would obviously just be bring Cornet back, bring Tillman back, bring Keita back. But especially after they declined Keita's option yesterday, which seemed like a slam dunk to pick up. I wonder if they're looking at all the options, all the ways those Final Four roster spots can come together, and trying to say, is there any way we can figure out a way to bring in a spot starter? Because Cornet's a great backup, great third center. Is he a spot starter for a week or two if Horford has to miss some time while Porzingis is out? That's a tougher question. Tillman, same deal. And I think Tillman's a guy who could actually make some money out in this market, given how many teams need centers.
So this is Bobby Manning. I tweeted earlier, Bobby Manning sweating it out today as the Celtics are, decision day potentially with Luke Kornet. Anything you want to send our way, you want to tweet us at Celtics CLNS. We'll share it with the crowd here if you want to get involved in the action here, because again, this is interactive and we are curious your thoughts. Obviously, we will share your chat as well, and we do really want to know what you guys are into, players you want to add, feelings that you're feeling right now, please, by all means, get in on the action. You guys are as big a part of the show, obviously, here as we are. Bobby, I didn't mean to cut you off here, but I wanted to get everybody involved, from the chat as well. But yeah, go ahead.
So my thinking going into today changed a little bit. I felt like, given Horford's age, given the capital you gave up to get him, and the fact that he showed well later in the season into the playoffs, that Tillman would be a priority here. He's on the younger side. He's still a guy you can maybe mold a little bit. And he's the most versatile defensive center by far among all the guys they have in there. He's not a situational guy. You can play him defensively.
And again, you see it up here. They do retain bird rights with Tillman, which means doesn't matter, even though they're in the second apron, which is punitive. They can still pay these guys whatever they want. O'Shea Brissett, I believe, can get 20% above veteran minimum if you were to get it. That's what goes on with there. Neemish Queta as well. You're looking at someone who's, not going to get a ton there anyway. So it's really if they want him back or not. I wouldn't be surprised. Kornet, again, they retain bird rights. They can do whatever they want there with him if they want to bring him back and fit him in, whatever. It's just everything is expensive at this point, Bobby. This is where you start nickel and diming, right? This is where that guy at $2 million, the $3 million deal costs you $7 million. So it's like, maybe I should just get a guy for even less. Every penny now is really, really magnified.
Yeah, and the decision's important too here, right? These aren't just guys who it's like, whatever, they're never going to play. You need these guys to get you through that first half of the season while Porzingis is out. Because obviously, John, the regular season's not everything. If they don't win the conference by 15 games this time around, it's not as big of a deal. But you don't want to be going 500 for the first 10, 20 games or so there coming off the championship because you can't figure it out at center, or Al is out for a week or two, or something just happens there. So this is an important decision. I tend to think, again, Tillman is going to be a guy who gets some serious looks this summer from other teams. Cornet is probably going to want a little bit of a bump, maybe not a huge bump over the minimum, but a little bit of one. And again, is he a guy who can spot start for you for 2 weeks if Horford misses some time? I think that's a real question. So do you go out there and bring back old friend Daniel Tice? Do you go back and get a Drummond or a guy who's been a starter in this league, who's capable of starting for a couple weeks if someone goes down? Those are the kind of questions they're going to have to ask here. Are they more comfortable with the familiar guys who played their role well last year, which was 3-4 games at a time, back-to-backs? Even in the playoffs a little bit, those guys gave you a little something, but that was more just Horford playing 40 minutes. Or do you want someone who's going to really eat some innings in the regular season? Drummond, Mason Plumlee. I don't look at Mo Bamba as much as that. Everyone loves that name. I don't know.
They do.
Not appealing to me. But yeah, that's a decision they're going to have to make here. And they might not have a decision, John, right? If Cornet gets a mid-level, he's gone. If Tillman gets a mid-level, he's gone.
Come on. Cornet's not getting a mid-level. I mean, you got mid-level guys are guys who are brought in with the idea that they're going to contribute and not just be a backup to a backup. I mean, you got to be serious. It's just simply a matter of whether Luke wants more playing time elsewhere or the Celtics want an even cheaper option. It's not like Luke has that many options here in terms of what he's going to be looking at. Nobody's signing him to anything real that's going to be difficult to compete with. It's just simply whether you want it at that price or not. But he's not approaching mid-level.
5-6 million is tough to compete with.
I know, but he's not approaching mid-level money. And you're right, 5-6 million is difficult to compete with. And veteran minimum is at what right now?
Probably for a guy like him, 2.5.
Right.
Some of the big veterans are 3, but that gets prorated anyway down to 2.4,
2.6, 2.7 last year. But yeah, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. So, if you bring in an old enough guy, that can tick down a little bit. And again, I'm willing to hear any ideas. These aren't names I love.
Here's your ideas, Bobby. This is what you threw at us, and you don't love these guys, but you recognize they're a little stuck, right? And there's not much you can do.
It's pretty much who wants to take a minimum, if anyone's coming from the outside. So Tice is certainly an intriguing option, and they wanted to bring him back last year before he ended up
signed elsewhere.
That
was surprising that he didn't go there.
Yeah, he didn't have minutes here, and so if you're sending out Cornet and Tillman, he suddenly has minutes here as that main backup, it'll be like 2019 all over again with Horford and Tice playing center for you. So I like that option a lot. How much has he declined in the time since he's gone? I actually thought he looked really good with the Clippers once he went over there last year, and he's just a reliable guy. And think back to 2020, which is a long time ago now, but he got you through that bubble playing some serious minutes. So he can shoot a little bit, not much, but a little bit. He can hit free throws, which is important. And he can play a couple different defensive coverages for you. So I really like it. I think he's a guy that can actually eat some innings for you at center. But the real innings eater here at center would obviously be Drummond. I don't know how you feel about him, John, today. Historically, obviously, he has a million warts.
I'll tell you how I feel about him. He's actually been greater value than all of his recent contracts. For a guy who plays the way he plays, has an elite skill in terms of rebounding, as you said, can eat up innings, if we're going to stay with that, baseball analogy here. Absolutely, that guy coming in at cheap is a ridiculous plug and play backfill just to simply throw a guy in there who can compete at that level. It's just simply the fit here. I think they're really, 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 really hesitant to just have some big, chunky, steaky, sit in the middle center that clogs everything up and plays significant minutes to the point that you can't run the type of offense you want to run. The one plus with Luke was that he presented a bit of he was their best lob threat, and he was getting those putbacks and tap-ins and this and that. So he gave you a little something there. He wasn't great on the glass. He wasn't great defensively, but he was a decent help side shot blocker. But I don't know that they want to just stick some guy in there who's just going to bog it all down. Even with Tillman, they really wanted to see if they could get him to hit that corner three and be like a 75% of Al Horford type of replacement when he played at that spot. It didn't quite take in year one, but if you bring him back, I think that's what you'd be looking for there, and play a little bit more small ball. You'll definitely get banged up on the glass. So I don't know. I don't know that they want a Drummond. That's what I'm not sure of here, whether the Celtics would want to make that fit. It feels like he's been available so many times and they just kind of balked at it.
Yeah, and there's been some buzz around them with him in the past, but they've never gone and done it, like you said. So you wonder if there's some guys in the front office who like him and there's some guys in the front office who don't like him as much. Obviously, it's not just Brad, making the calls on everything there. There's probably a little debate going on in terms of the options they have at the spot. I don't mind him as an innings eater just because I don't think he'll play in the playoffs, and I don't think any one of these guys, if Porzingis is healthy, will play in the playoffs.
It also doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you're really only talking about a couple of months. And so it doesn't matter, right? I mean, let's be realistic. Do you think the Celtics would have not won the title playing the same competition this year if they had to go on the road for one or two series? What's the worst thing that happens? They slip to a 2 seed or a 3 seed. I'm not that concerned with what happens in those first 20, 30 games without Porzingis. You just need warm bodies, really. The goal is to be healthy and have all of your guys in the second half of the season to try to make another run here. So yeah, let's just say through 30 games with Porzingis, if you're playing lights out and you're super, super healthy, they go 25-5 if they played at the pace they played last year, 24-6. What's the worst? You start those 30 games without Porzingis and with Drummond playing 15 to 20 minutes a night. 22-8, 21-9, big deal. 3-game difference, something in that range. They can overcome that. I'm not ridiculously worried.
Yeah,
it's not ideal, but if you look at it over the span of it, what's Porzingis being out going to cost him in that first 30 games? 3 games total? 4? More. They won the East by 15 games, 14 games.
Yeah, again, it depends because let's say they can only keep Cornet. Tillman's gone. Kata's here. I don't know what to think of Kata at this point. Some people love him. Some people think he's just a G League guy. So
I think
that one's tougher to call. Yeah, I don't even know if he's going to be back at this point. So that's another layer to this. Who's actually there? Because I know you look at the record last year and say, oh, they were fine without Porzingis. They won all those games. It didn't hurt them. If you lose 2 out of the 3 guys who helped replace him night in and night out, it probably gets a little bit more impactful. Again, you don't want to. The difference is you won all those games by just throwing it on Horford's shoulders and saying, Horford, do everything. The thinking here is you don't want to do that, especially since he's not just gone for 3 or 4 games. He's gone for 30 games. So, yes, you can just play Horford 35, 40 minutes to replace Porzingis here, but you don't want to do that. You actually want to rely on the complement of guys who were here last year and put them in and actually commit to them, which Joe sometimes had a little trouble doing, especially in Tillman's case. Or you actually want to go get a bona fide guy who can shave Horford's minutes down legitimately. Nice super chat right there. Look at that.
Sean, out of nowhere, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate that. That was unexpected. Anyone sending in super chats, we do appreciate them. I always feel weird soliciting them. But they
we might have to go get dinner after this, Sean.
I know they help us pump out more and more free content. The more the more we get, the better it is. But so we do appreciate anything from you guys. But we're here one way or the other. Yeah, I mean, somebody just put this up here, and I want to throw it in there regarding Porzingis. Like,
someone's mad Porzingis drinks soda before games.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the issue.
DJ, loyal viewer, and always active in the chat. That he'll get hurt again, maybe, but that's a bigger question, right? And it's a different question. It's not this question. Right now, you're planning for what you know, which is an absence of 20 to 30 games to start a season, which you could live with if you had him back healthy. Porzingis, being the injury risk that he is and that he might continue to be and that he's always been, was baked into the cost. I mean, you got him for Marcus Smart. You got him for money, Marcus Smart, and you got 2 first-round draft picks in exchange. I mean, he was given to you because that was baked in. One team didn't want to pay an injury risk, that was nowhere near contention anymore. $30 million a year, and the Celtics said, I do. So if you're worried about Porzingis long-term, it's a completely separate issue. And yes, you might, Bobby, you've talked about it. You might have to get out of the Porzingis business at some point if this is going to be a thing, which means.
Would you consider it as soon as this summer?
I mean, you'll dump, not right now.
Yes.
No. Right. By all accounts, there's no question this year in my mind, they are running it back because there's no reason not to. You're the champs, and you are, although you're going to be expensive, anything regarding second apron doesn't hurt you yet with this team because you can basically return it all just for money. So you can run it back and not have to worry at all. Everyone else has a lot of business to do. And especially if they want to improve, and they got to make some serious moves. The Celtics for one more year do not. And that's the best thing they have going for this year. So the year after, you're going to have to get really creative. And if you believe Brad is a forward thinker and ahead of the curve, they're going to do something in a year that's going to blow people's minds and shock you in terms of a move that they're going to make. Because if Brad's here for the long haul, I don't believe they're just going to handcuff themselves and just be in jail for the rest of existence. But they're absolutely, for next year, I think, just going to eat it and run it back and be in that second apron. And then they're going to start to maneuver, and that's going to put legit everyone on the table. But it's not a concern for now. That's the way I view it.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, everything is going to happen around the league right at 6 and 5 minutes. Not a ton in terms of impacting the Celtics, but the big one that looks like it's probably going to come down right at 6 is George going to Philly. So do you have a competitor?
I did want to get
now?
into that. Yeah, I want to get into that. So that's clearly the news of the day. And thank you, Junie. We think you're great. That's exactly it. That's the news of the day. The growing optimism Philadelphia 76ers will land Paul George in free agency, in my mind, is basically wink, wink, this deal is done. And I think that's, if you read between the lines on the reporting, that's what I see.
Yeah, and the
I mean,
Clippers
is
seem
that
to
that's how you read it, right? Like he's going to meet with multiple teams in free agency, but it's like Orlando, and I mean, it's Philly,
Utah was
and
poking their head in. Yeah.
yep, yep.
So it seems done. Maybe it's a last-ditch effort to scare the Clippers and saying it's really going to happen. I'm really leaving. Because, man, I don't know what the Clippers are going to do, but more importantly
Well,
for Philly.
breaking Clippers news: Harden returning, 2-year, $70 million deal. So that just happened. As well, other news since we've been on the air here, Chris Paul waived by the Golden State Warriors as well. That was something that was potentially being discussed that would happen. So there's that. But this is the biggest move by far. And now you're talking about two teams, Bobby, between the Sixers and the Knicks that are coming at you, recognizing they're woefully short as currently constructed, and they made their move on the Celtics here. And I believe that the George thing is, now you've got a new big three out there with Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George that can that seems formidable.
He's a great fit, too. I think his role in LA stunted who he is in terms of a ball handler, in terms of a guy who can create offense. Second units will certainly be intriguing with him out there and Embiid off the floor. It just doesn't have to be the Embiid show now. And that's obviously going to be a little bit of an adjustment for Embiid, I'm sure. But this is a formidable group. This is a really good coach and Nurse who I thought the Sixers played you tough when they were healthy early in the season. That was probably one of the more difficult opponents you had to play across the league. Those first two games in Philly out there were pretty memorable to me. And obviously one of them was that loss where Joe went at Gary. So that's another reason I remember one of those games. But it's a really good team. Great depth. We'll see how their depth would actually fill out around that big three, given the money there. And Embiid certainly has to make it to the playoffs healthy, which he never seems to do. But it's a team to watch. Is it a team that's going to topple you? No, but as you start to stack things up, John, if Porzingis has some issues, if you have some injuries, if they're healthy, you just start to throw in a lot of ifs that bring you just a little bit closer to you. That's going to be the thing, right? If the Celtics are healthy and all is equal, they're going to rule the East. If they have a bump or bruise, a guy's out, two guys are out, these teams stay healthy, like Philly and New York, that's where you run into trouble. So that's basically the deal here is these teams aren't building rosters that really threaten you, but they lower the margin for error a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much was made, Bobby, about the Celtics like luck in terms of opponents. The greatest luck they had, at least throughout the course of the season, was their injury luck. Now, it's hard to say that they had good injury luck when they lost their second or third best or most impactful player for the season throughout the majority of the playoffs. That's not great luck. And they were able to win the title regardless. Now, you wonder if on the flip side, every other team they played did not have those types of injuries, how much more challenging that might have been given the Celtics were without Porzingis. But honestly, being without him and being able to win those two series, and honestly, the majority of the Mavs series without him, he played basically an actual effective game and a half in that series, shows how far head and shoulders above everyone they were. If you do the numbers on every single player on the team, their record without any single player was ridiculous. It was about the same as it was with those players. Their record without Porzingis, without Brown, the few games where they played without Tatum, without all of them. Derek White is actually the only one where I think they had a lower winning percentage than their overall. So when he was out of action. So they were
Why do you
that
think
far
that
ahead of
was?
everybody.
Just interchangeability?
There's randomness involved to it. But you overstate the glue guy type of thing. I think Derek White is just one of those guys that just makes everything all right. You know what I mean?
He's the guy you miss most when he was out.
He was. It's amazing how noticeable it was. You know what?
Oh, we have breaking news. Hold on.
What do we got?
Luke Kornet is back on a one-year deal with the Boston Celtics.
Bobby, I'm so glad I got to share this with you.
Let's go. Right on the buzzer. They didn't waste any time, John. They had Luke sitting there with a pen ready. He was their priority in this
If we are not given B-roll of Luke signing that deal, Then I want my money back. That's terrific. So we have it. We've got the first one.
There's your second center for now.
He's your second center. He is. We'll get that graphic up in a second, but yes, Luke Kornet returns.
All I want to know is why did Woj get that news and not me?
He should have broken it on this show, to be honest, Bobby. I think that's a fail by us.
Yeah. Oh, well, as long as he's back. So there you go. You have, I'd imagine it's a league minimum, John, or maybe like a bump over it. 1 year deal. So it didn't take much to keep him, which was good. And now you wonder, does that mean Tillman's gone? Is that it in the front court? Or are you just going to keep everybody here? Is everyone just going to be happy to come back and run it back? I would imagine he's here and Tillman's gone, but we'll see.
Yeah, I would think so. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, just sending notes out to our guys. Luke Cornet, there it is, re-signing Luke Cornet to a 1 year deal. So that's good. Hold on 1 second. Excellent. That's good, Bobby. So you got that. It's checking another box, and we'll update our our thing here. I got Noah, by the way, chiming in, texting. We were having a side conversation, saying she's bummed she's not on this show to get your live reaction to this news. So, but
that's
yes,
amazing.
Kornet,
6 o'clock on the dot.
Yeah.
Hey, he was great for them last year. Now, is he a spot starter for you? Is it just him and Horford there? I don't think so. I think you need one more body in there. And maybe if you really believe in Kada, it's him. If Tillman's willing to take a small bump or the minimum, perfect. You're all set. You have all the options you need at center while Porzingis
You know what
is out.
I forgot to do? I forgot to do one of my effects here to give you like the fireworks. Is it 2 thumbs up for fireworks? I always forget. I wanted to give you balloons. Give you some effects for the Cornet thing.
It only works when you don't want it.
I know. It's so funny. I do every time I do my wind horse, I feel like I friggin' throw one out there by accident. But anyway, Cornet resigns. And Kevin Love returning to the Heat. That's some other one. This isn't updated yet, but I just throwing it back up there. You add now Cornet to this mix. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 12 guys you have coming back again, no matter what.
Yeah, so you have 3 roster spots right now.
There's so little to be done here with this team. It's, it really is like, it's actually great. It's a great position to be in if you're the Celtics, is it not? Like, to be boring. Like this is, you prefer this, right? Versus like they usually enter these off seasons with limited room, no, really just mid-levels and veteran minimums to play with, and then hoping that guys want to come play with you. But your fault, all those veteran minimum and all those mid-level guys want to go to LA and New York and Miami and destination cities, and not necessarily to the, well, we've got a chance to win type of team. This year, knowing you have almost nothing that you can do. And again, second apron, just throwing it out there. Here's what you can't do. You can't aggregate contracts. You can't acquire players and sign in trades. You can't use the 5.2 million taxpayer mid-level exception. You can't take back more money in a trade. You can't send out cash, pre-existing trade exceptions. You can basically sign guys for veteran minimums. That's what you can do here, right? Or trade 1-for-1 straight up salary for salary. Or you can trade 1-for-2, but you can't aggregate your own contract. So you really have next to zero flexibility in terms of what you can do. The best thing that you can do is re-sign all of your guys, make them assets, and then trade them down the road if that's what you want to do, right, Bobby? I mean, what else can you do? What else can you do with what you've got?
Yeah, and that seems like the plan here. It's amazing to hear they're going to extend White and they're going to extend Hauser and they're just keeping all these guys, but that might be the best strategy. And then you figure out which contracts are most valuable, which can you send out and get some stuff for down the line if you're going to break them up into smaller pieces, or just keep it rolling if you're able to financially do that. Now, again, I did the math, John, and it was some rough math. So I'll throw it out there, but I'm not sure how 1,000% accurate it is. But I had the Celtics at the repeater tax. If they extend Hauser for $10 million a year, if they keep White at that $30 million a year tag that it looks like he's gonna get for a max offer, and it's Tatum supermax, it's Brown supermax. If everything's still here in 2026, you're talking about $400 million in salary plus tax that year. So again, they're going to have to get creative when the time comes, which is probably that summer of 2025. But next year, you can just run it back. You can have all these pieces together and have them as assets you can trade and just figure it out, which is probably the best option. Because even if you let some guys go, John, you still don't have flexibility effectively. Maybe a little bit more, but not
You
much.
don't. The best business is bringing your guys back, and if they don't want to go, if they don't want to come back for whatever it is you're able to offer, or the playing time that they're very likely to receive because they know their roles based on what they did last year, the best thing that you can do is simply bring them back, or you might catch. I mean, I think there's an option. There's an opportunity here for like a title bandwagon veteran minimum guy, Bobby, who might be left. That's the thing is the Celtics. The best thing you do when you're a team like the Celtics here is wait for the dust to settle. The most likely moves you're going to make are the ones after everybody has spent their money and there's a few guys left, and then they look around and say, yeah, I'll go to Boston. I think there's a path for me to 10 to 15 minutes a game and a ring. Why not? And
So
that
what did they
could
need
happen.
most?
Wing depth by far.
You think?
I've been dying for wing depth for 4 years, and they just kept getting they got Brogdon, and I was like, okay, it's not wing depth, but it's great because they needed it. 2 years ago, and then this year they get a big and another point guard. With Porzingis and Holiday, which is great because talent is more important than positional need. But if you are just simply looking at positional need, somebody who can come and spell those guys a little bit off the bench that can give you a little bit of 3-and-D sort of situation. And again, Hauser did it admirably, but any wing depth at all. Somebody flipped out Gordon Hayward here. And, I always think of him every time I pass the cheese shop in Wellesley. And wonder, what can we do to get him back here? Could it ever work? Because he wasn't horrible with Charlotte, but he was awful in OKC on that trade, and everything went bad for him. I don't know that he's signing a veteran minimum to play with you. I just wonder what's happening next. Somebody floated that. Yeah, I mean, my God.
Might be a little bit more valuable than that.
He's definitely more valuable than that. But at this point, absolutely, something like that. But any wing depth by
Didn't
far.
they have a problem with living here too, right? Go bring it back to the cheese shop. So they're probably not moving back here.
No, I don't think they like the politics of this area in general. Mr. Education Reform, I don't think was really for it. But besides that, yeah, I don't see that. And yes, he might be washed, but we're talking 8 to 10. We're talking 12, 15 minutes a game. Absolutely, I would consider something like that. You're not going to get anybody else. Yeah, Joe Johnson, sure. But yes, that's what I would want. Is somebody slightly better than O'Shea Brissett? You know what I mean? A slight upgrade over Brissett where you could reliably count on a few minutes a game and not, certain situations. And again, based off of what we're looking at here, you need a guy who can shoot 36, 37%, from three, but defend a little better than Hauser. Maybe that would be an athlete, an athlete that you could count on not bricking every three. You know what I mean? Like even 35%, just the threat of the three. Yes. Give me Romeo. Give me a reformed Romeo. That's what I want.
So let's start with Tillman. Do you think Tillman's back?
Huh?
Do you think Tillman's back?
I don't know what his market is. What do you think?
I think he could get a decent bump over the mid-level. So is that, not over the mid-level, over the minimum. So is that close to mid-level?
He's definitely better than a veteran minimum guy, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's tough
He's
for me to
really
tell
ju-
too. There's
he's
some money out there.
yeah.
Like
I
if the
mean,
Knicks
but
can,
not a
so
lot of
the
teams
Knicks are in
have
a
to
weird
get to a
spot.
floor. Like the Pistons have to get to a floor. There's a couple teams, but not people don't have to burn cash necessarily.
Yeah. And so the Knicks are in a weird spot. They're probably the team that needs a big more than any other because you have to think Oklahoma City's probably going to splurge a little bit on a Hartenstein. And, there's other guys they could probably go get at bigger money who are more starting caliber guys. But I look at the Knicks who really can't bring back Hartenstein. They're hard capped like $600,000 over where they're at right now. And they probably need a real backup behind Mitchell Robinson, who's always hurt. So would they go and try to get a Tillman? I don't know how they're going to squeak out enough room below that hard cap line to actually go get anyone who makes any money. But they're a team I look at that could probably use a guy like that. There's some teams around the league that need backup center help and could actually offer him like a full-time role. Even his former Grizzlies team, like would they go back and just bring him right back over to Memphis after the trade there? Would he want to do that? I don't know. You got the Lakers who probably need a little help. Clippers, if Tice leaves, need a backup. Orlando, just let Mo Wagner go, it probably looks like. Detroit, Philly have some money. So there are teams out there that could probably make a run at him. My thing with Boston and him, and he was really good in spots, Sean, but they didn't really seem to want to play him. Joe didn't. He was hurt a lot. That knee kept bothering him. And he never figured out quite where he fits in the offense. And that's probably the biggest reason they prioritize Cornet over him beyond this probably being a league minimum for Cornet here. So I have a hard time thinking he's back. And then that brings me back to Brissett. I've heard Brissett wants to stay. So does he take a little bump, that 20% you talked about, and stay?
Right.
And he's like that small ball counter to Cornet, and you just play small next year like you did in the East Finals. Maybe you could do that. He seems to be a great guy in the locker room here. That shot has to get better this summer. Like it can't get any worse than it got there toward the later stage of that season. So maybe it's just Cornet and Brissett. You lean on familiarity. You bring Keita back as like the deep reserve big and give him a little bit more opportunity. And that might be your front court. It's a little thin, but again, Horford's going to carry most of the weight there. So is that good enough to you? Cornet, Brissett, Keita?
It's not, but again, we're just talking about surviving for a little bit of time. Two different conversations about getting through the early part of the season without Porzingis and or replacing him and still being as competitive. That's something you can't do. But to me, as I said, is I'm not super concerned with what they do and whatever they do. It's just going to be like what you can live with. So, you know. I think the best thing that they can do, because we've seen it this year, is for the most part, try and run it back.
Agreed. And they obviously start with that move here. So 3
Isn't it
roster
funny,
spots
Bobby,
left.
how many years people wanted to run back losers? And we were like, no, you can't do that, And this year, absolutely. Why would you not run it back? We got a lot more to talk about. We'll get into it in a second. But we do have the breaking news on Luke. We're going to hang out a little while longer, see if we catch anything else. Again, real quick, we want to tell you guys about Prize Picks, one of our sponsors here at the Garden Report. And again, we know right now you're out of season with the NBA, but there's still a ton of things you can get in, get in on the action with Prize Picks, which of course is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Over 5 million active users, tons of promotions. All you have to do, pick more or less 2 to 6 player stat projections, can win up to 100 times your money with as few as 4 correct picks. That's all you need, which is great. So again, finals are over, but there's still a ton of stuff out here. Great game just now, Bobby, with the Fever taking out, taking the Fever won. They came back.
All right. They're turning it around a little bit.
They were good, beating Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner, and Caitlin Clark just missed a triple-double, even though she did not shoot the ball well. I think 4 of 14 from the field, was a rebound short of a triple-double. But again, you want to get in with Caitlin and Angel Reese, who just made history for 10 straight double-doubles, I believe. there's two stats right there: points and rebounds. Get after it. WNBA is hot right now. Definitely get involved on that. Enter that code CLNS first deposit match up to 100. Again, it's fun to play. It's easy. The app is super intuitive. Just jump on there. Use that code CLNS for a first deposit match up to 100. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy. And we also mentioned Game Time, and can't ignore Game Time here because it really is terrific.
So John, I use
can...
Game Time on Friday.
Yeah.
Went to a concert, went to Roadrunner. Great experience
Where'd you go?
using
Who'd
the
you
app.
see?
It's an Australian band, Hiatus Coyote. It was pretty fun, and I got a good deal here.
And it was banged
$47.
down. Wow, terrific. So
Packed
Game
house.
Time, again, you can get it. Concerts, games, as we said, MLB games, Red Sox are hot. And I started looking, Bobby, early in the year, you could get in for nothing. You can't do that anymore. It's getting competitive. And I was checking out the Game Time app. I was thinking of taking the kids to a game this weekend. So you definitely want to use that and watch it as those prices go down. There were still several good deals. But that's the best thing about Game Time is the prices do go down the closer you get to it. And as we said, it's concert season here. There's places between Roadrunner and MGM for, indoor venues here. You've obviously got Great Woods. There's a bunch of shows going out. You have
Great Woods.
I know you can't not call it Great Woods.
For
That's
a
what
while.
it is. I know. I think I just started calling it the Tweeter Center, and then now it's Xfinity. It drives me nuts that we have two things in New England called Xfinity. Because there's the one in Hartford is also Xfinity. Yeah. I just so generic, but it is what it is. So I still call it Great Woods because it'll always be Great Woods. But flash deals, zone deals, priority deals, panoramic views from your seat. Check it out. All you have to do is download the app, create an account, use the code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Once again, download the app, create an account, use the code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Let's get back to it again. The NBA negotiate.
What would we have called this show if it would never change from the Fleet Center?
Well, that was the thing is that, it is funny, like Fleet Center. It's just so funny that it was.
That would have been pretty bad.
Thank God. Thank goodness it's the Garden.
They saved Garden at the last second. Yeah.
Yeah. The NBA free agency negotiating window is officially open. And, while we're not sure, our producer used Game Time to see the Michael Jackson musical. How about that? Check that out. Jackson Tolliver, our man on the street. He's out there checking out MJ. The negotiating window is open. It opened at 6:00. Deals can begin being officially consummated on July 6th. That's also when we're extension eligible as well. And Jason Tatum expected to sign a Supermax. The Derek White conundrum, Bobby. It's interesting. Does it feel like White's just going to sign it and everybody's okay? We're not hearing anything negative yet on this front.
No, but Brad has shied away from that a little bit more and talked more about Hauser, it feels like, as has the reporting. They're going to go to the table, right? And I know Mannix has talked a little bit about it. He's probably the closest who said that the Celtics are going to actually put that full 127 on the table. And again, it's a negotiation, right? So obviously the Celtics aren't just going to go to the table and say, here's the max extension, boom, and just go from there. They're probably going to try to shake him down a little bit, especially given the tax situation on the roster and the second apron and all that. And he's probably going to stand firm on the full max there. And the debate we've had on the show here, John, is whether that's even enough. Obviously, the most that the Celtics can offer White is 4 years, $127 million, which is just about $30 million a year. Emmanuel quickly just got more than that, right? On his rookie extension, 135 or so. And OG Anunoby, who is a pretty comparable player, and the Ringer has White actually pretty high above OG Anunoby in the league standings in terms of
that's the championship bump for sure.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean you have
but
to.
He goes out there and gets 212.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is 127 enough to keep him? Unless he
I
really
think
wants
White
to
is
stay.
leaving. White is leaving anywhere between $7 to $10 million on the table by signing this, if not more. And the cap goes up next year. With the TV deal coming in another 10%, so there's more money to spend. A lot of teams know this; they're holding out, they're saving up a little bit there. So again, it's a modest salary cap increase this year. Maybe was it 3% after being 10 each of the last 2 years. It's going to go up again because of the TV deal. So there's money. There's going to be money next year. It is bad business for Derek White to re-sign. Bad business.
And I mean, think of where he'd rank in the free agents next summer. You're talking about Jimmy Butler. Mitchell is obviously going to be out there. So those are the big fish, Jamal Murray. But you could argue he's like 4th or 5th behind those guys. Chris Middleton,
it's
Brandon
bad business.
Ingram, maybe.
Yeah. He should not sign it. If he does, it's because he loves it and wants to stay here and actually wants to have team-friendly deals, or whatever, because it increases the likelihood.
Together.
Well, I mean, look at it this way: if White really wants to be here and thinks they're not going to pay me 40 million next year, but they will pay me 30 something million this year, I kind of just want to be here. Just get it done and then eliminate any risk. You have a bad year, your market dips a little bit, you get hurt, something else happens.
He doesn't want to pull a Grant, right?
There is something that to be said about it, but it doesn't make sense. The gambling on yourself makes more sense, but he may be so content with it that he just wants to just lock it down and not think about it anymore and play pressure free, and knows he wants to be here and knows he's going to take maybe less to stay anyway next year because he's so whatever, or he's just going to do what any businessman would do in this situation and say, it's in my best interest to wait a year. So I don't know how this is going to go. But as you said, 4-year, 127 million. I think there's a lot more out there for him.
Yeah, and I calculate his max
32 million, 31.75 is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, if he goes to free agency, the Celtics can obviously offer him a 5th year at that point, and that would be in total a max for him 237, so about 47 a year or so at that point. Yeah. So that's significant what he's given up here. Now, of course, you need leverage to go out there and get that. Do the Celtics look at it and say, you're not going to go to Detroit, you're not going to go to Oklahoma or Philly or any of these teams?
Yeah, but you can't play that game. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you might have to a little bit more given the situation of your finances on this roster. We've talked about the green light with Brad. He didn't say that for the first time at his presser the other day. For the first time, he was finally like, yeah, we want all these guys here for a long time. He didn't go that green light phrase that he's used at pretty much every presser prior to that. So there's going to have to be some considerations here. Again, John, even if you get him at this absolute bargain, 127, even if you keep Hauser at 10 million a year, which I think everyone can live with on him, and a new cap environment, 8 even, you're still talking about $400 million for this roster in 2026. So it's significant what we're talking about here. And I don't know. It feels like someone has to shake loose. How far can they go? Is Wick just going to pay anything it takes to keep this roster together long term?
He's in too deep now, honestly. And as I said, it's the roster flexibility and the team building that you're going to have to be more concerned with in the future than the money at this. That's what I think I think Wick recognizes I can't break it up now for money, but right. I know Brad is going to have to break it up later to be able to build a team going forward, because it's not sustainable to have all of these guys under this contract for this long. So Brad's going to have to do something tricky down the road. But I don't think Wick's going to make money decisions now. Like, you're not going to not re-sign somebody because they're so deep into the tax. It's going to be more of a, well, how screwed are we from a roster building perspective if we stay into the second apron for too long?
It's a good point, right? From a team building standpoint, you'd be screwing the team to draw this line and say, just let these guys go because they're asking for too much money.
He can't do it now. He can't do it.
And these guys are probably going to play ball with them a little bit. Like, do you think Hauser is going to nickel and dime them for every dollar they have in these extension talks, or is he just going to take a bump over what he's making right now and get some security, given the success he's had for 2 years here? White, similar thing. He has more of a cachet, I'd say, and a track record of success to build on what he did the last 2 years, have another big year next year, and go out there and really be one of the more coveted players in the league. And it's not just the free agent teams with money at that point. Maybe some teams with a little bit of flexibility to kind of do some sign and trade stuff would say, all right, we're going to commit big money to White at this point as a big piece of our team. So he's a real swing guy right here. And this is why we were a little concerned, right, John, when they signed that Holiday extension, because it was a more immediate concern, right? You had to do that, or he could have potentially been going to free agency right now, and we would have been on holiday watch. But
yes, exactly.
It definitely impacted your ability to keep White.
It does to an extent, but it's the same deal that White's eligible for. And honestly, you're like, how's it going to look in 2 years? In 2 years, it's not that much money. If you keep going up 10%, all of a sudden, $30 million for one of these guys is nothing. When the top guys are going to start getting 70, 75, and 80 on their deals, you're like, I mean, this is where it gets interesting when you're the Celtics, is the things that are going to make more sense down the road are going to be either Tatum or Brown, because the White and the Holiday are going to feel like bargains at $30 million.
Yeah, he goes down to 19% of the cap in the last year of that deal.
Yeah, so it's not crazy. So I still think the best business right now is to lock it up, and if you can, and that goes down as things go up here.
I mean, there's no doubt they should offer this.
You're not getting out of cap jail, but you're offering this, and you're just praying he takes it. And then just like, slide him something under the table, like
Sam Adams
wink.
and Regina Pizza.
Yeah, to give him anything. Plus, also, you think Derek White's going somewhere else and being a media darling the way he is here in terms of like his likability and his hero and cult status? I think he's got it pretty good with this sort of stuff. I don't think Derek White's walking into another market and getting, the top local brewery making him like the centerpiece of an ad campaign. So who knows? I think White really wants to stay. If I had to handicap it, I would actually lean towards him taking this.
You think? I felt that way too. Jimmy feels different just because you want to go to free agency and see what's out there. And maybe the pressure of the Celtics to give you a little bit more than this. Again, it doesn't have to be that 237 number I threw out there. Maybe it's like 175 or 150. This is low. This is a low. Now, I think if you're his agent, John, what are you telling him if you're his agent?
That he should definitely wait. And then
should probably
you should wait. Sign the longer deal, and if you want to play ball with them money wise, but you're leaving on the total. He's probably leaving the whole package deal. He's leaving 60, 70, 80 million on the table, because he'll probably sign for 200 million with the fifth year that they can offer, right? It somewhere in that range.
I mean, yeah.
180, 190. I'd imagine it's in that ballpark, right?
Yeah, and after what we saw with Horford, after what we saw with Hayward, Horford was a team guy. Hayward didn't love it here, so he'd probably look for another situation. You just say you don't assume guys are going to take major pay cuts to make it work. Now, that was a different situation, right, where the team was in turmoil and guys are flying out the door and it just didn't look good. They're coming off a championship here, so maybe there is a more of an onus to take pay cuts and sacrifice and keep this thing together. It was funny. We were down at Gillette, John, like a week ago or so. They were getting the shaves, and someone in the back of the room was like, resign, and Horford turned to White and was like, yeah. So I'm sure the guys are putting a little pressure on him too here to lock this down. And you mentioned a good point too, John. Is it going to be a distraction all year, the free agency thing hanging over his head? Is that going to put more pressure on him to try to play well or put up numbers or whatever it might be? So maybe he just doesn't want to deal with that. But I'm not going to.
That's what you're hoping
he's going to do. It.
You're hoping all of that stuff factors in, and he just wants to. He's like, yeah, man, this is funny money to me. I never thought I'd make this much money in my life, and I want to be here, and I just want to lock it up and have it done. Yeah, maybe some people operate like that, but it is bad business. To answer your question, if I'm his agent, I'm telling him don't do it. wait it out, come back if you want. Worst case scenario, you're going to get exactly the same money with the same per year with an extra year on your deal, and you'll be fine. So that's what I would be most likely telling him to do. Real quick, we want to tell you one more thing. Nutrafol. I know a lot of people here on the Garden Report saw my hair for the first time when I was live when we did our final our shows from the Garden, when I went out into the wild and joined Bobby and Josue. We even got Jimmy out there, Sherrod as well. But Nutrafol, one of the sponsors here on the Garden Report, something that they sent us free samples, and I used it and I like it, and it's summer, and yeah, you're out, you're at the park, you're at the beach, you're at the pool, and yeah, you want to take care of your hair, and the Nutrafol kind of gets you involved with this. It's results that you can run your fingers through. Limited time. Again, Nutrafol offering listeners $10 first month subscription, free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com, enter the promo code GARDEN. That's all you need to do. Nutrafol is terrific product, clinically tested formulations, make sure that it's effective. 72% of men saw more scalp coverage taking Nutrafol after 6 months. So again, not just men, 86% of women saw improved hair growth taking Nutrafol. It's proven. It's something you want to check out. $10 off that first shipment. If you do want to give it a try, go in, get yourself some Nutrafol using the promo code GARDEN. No harmful side effects. Don't worry about it. Everything is good with Nutrafol if you want to get in and prevent hair loss and get some hair growth restoration there as well. So Bobby, let's wrap up where we're going here. Negotiating is open. The deals didn't come fast and furious. The
Only
number one deal.
One deal.
Huh? Only one deal.
Only one deal dropped at 6.
Yeah, only one deal. And
this is the fifth season of Luke, John.
Here's a live look at Bobby as soon as that deal was announced when Luke Kornet came in. Yep, what do we got here? Yeah, Jaylen Brown. Hey, Jaylen, do you want Luke to sign? You want Luke to come back? Yes, we do. We're dancing. We're loving it. We're loving the Luke return here.
It's crazy. Who would have thought when they trade for him at that deadline in 2021 that he'd still be here in 2025 in a significant role?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely kind of exceeded expectations in terms of actually playing a part. I think he plays a bigger role on the Garden Report than he does on the Celtics, but he's valuable to both. He was easily he averaged like 15 minutes a game this year, which is pretty good, but he probably averaged like he was probably responsible for 20 to 30% of our of our material on the Garden Report. Without Luke, we would have really struggled to fill as much time as we did. So I'm glad he's back. Plus, he's such a good guy and they love him. And he's a great cheerleader when he's not playing. He makes the most of his minutes when he does.
There you
go. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah, and he's gotten better. He looked stronger last year. His finishing just continues to improve year over year. You wonder, could he pull out the 3, John? Everybody wants to see it.
I don't get why not. That's what he should. That's more of what I expected. I thought he would do that. I'm surprised that's not a green light for him.
Yeah, we'll have to see where he's at in camp. But yeah, per 36 minutes last year, 12 points, 9 rebounds, 2 blocks, and he shot 70% from the field. He was really good. And that actually translates. When he played a little bit more, he had some bigger games. And it's matchup dependent, right? If you're playing a team that's really spreading you out, that Indiana series wasn't a good fit for him. Dallas wasn't a good fit for him. But he had a big game in that Cleveland series, near double-double. He had a good performance overall in that Miami series, round 1. That was a good fit for him. So you were getting playoff minutes out of him, too, with Porzingis out.
He starts shooting threes, Bobby. I'll change my tune a little bit because I wish that was part of his game. I wish you could do that, and I don't know why you couldn't because he has a decent stroke. So I would like to see him extend out a little bit there and make that a viable option. And yes, Cobra, we are happy for Bobby and for all of us that Luke is back. And
let him
we're
be
glad to have done a show.
Porzingis.
Yeah,
Do some pick and
we're glad.
pop. Do some pick and roll.
Yeah. Yeah, why
So,
not?
He's back. He's back. And I think we got to get to work on a shirt, John. I'm going to call up Jimmy after this and see if that
You're
can
dying.
be
You
arranged.
want it so bad.
Well, we had to
We need to
wait
hear-
see if he was staying, right? Because we couldn't be throwing them in the trash if he left.
We'll beta a third center shirt, and if there's a lot of demand, we'll make it. I'll tell you that. Okay,
Let us know in the chat if you're willing to buy a Cornet shirt.
We'll
I need
beta
one.
it. He's your third center, and it's how long does the word center need to be? Because you need to get the why. He's your third center.
That'll fill up more space.
Yeah, it would. So yeah, that's where we are with free agency.
A little slow to start.
Yes, we'll buy a Cornet shirt. I would buy it. All right, we'll talk about it. 100% rocking a Cornet shirt. That's 3 sales, Jimmy.
Only other notes I have here.
Yeah.
Only other notes I have here, of course, 3 roster spots. I'd assume they're only going to fill 2 for now and just see how it goes with the other ones. Kada, what do you think's going to happen there, John? Because people care. He's restricted. You can only offer him the minimum effectively here. No one probably goes near him, right? Because he's restricted.
Yeah.
So he probably stays, right?
I'm putting this up. Luke is off this free agent screen, but this is the one we made before. Tillman, Brissett, Kada, Svi. I think it's possible. Tillman and I think it's possible 2 of those 3 are back. And you're right. You're at 14 and you leave it open and you see what happens. I think it's possible Walsh can threaten for the Brissett minutes this year, and you don't need O'Shea at that bump. And I think they think Walsh has the potential to stroke it a little bit better from the outside and be a competitive 3-and-D type of guy. Needs a little bit more on his frame for sure. And I don't know that he's going to play actual minutes, but I think you might start to. Could he slide into O'Shea minutes next year? Maybe.
I think it's a little soon.
It might be, but I think you have to start looking at not always worrying about ideals and just worrying about good enough. And this is again where you talk about development. It's a mistake to not develop assets because you need them and you need to get cheaper. And you can't always just spend a little more because it's 5% better or 10% better when you're talking about something that low on the roster, right? The 10th or 11th guy. I think it's kind of silly to not try the guys that you have because you have to start to do that. You got to get cheaper and you got to get, you got to start to play guys. So yes, you want to see, you want to see your first round rookie get some minutes. I don't want to see him sit on the bench all year. I don't want to see him not play 8 games in a row and then play 6 minutes in one game. You want to try to rotate those guys in a little bit. You want to use that regular season as a test kitchen. You want to build those guys up because you never know, you might get something out of them later on. I think you have a tremendous luxury if you're this team here, especially early on, if Cornet is around, if Porzingis isn't playing, to mix and match and try some different combos and, rest some guys and not, go balls to the wall chasing another 65 wins, 60 something win season. I just don't think there's any value in that.
No. And you got to scale back minutes too. Brad talked about that a little bit last week when we talked to him. That's a real consideration. And some of these guys are coming off the Olympics too, in Holiday and Tatum's case. So they're going to play even more this summer. And you want to start to ramp these guys up a little bit because a lot of these guys didn't play much into the spring, into the summer. So you want to have these guys involved early and often if you can. I think a big reason they add Walsh up in Maine, and I still think that's the expectation next year, is to get him those consistent minutes so he's not just with the team constantly sitting around doing nothing. Shireman's the guy who people are going to be a little intrigued by here. And I don't have a great sense yet of how much they expect him to play. I think it's feasible if there's injuries or stuff opens up. But he's 23. He's gained that NBA strength a little bit at this point. He's gotten more athletic. He's done his improvement at the college level for the most part. So you have to look at him and say he's a little bit more ready-made than Walsh was. And he's obviously a guy who fits your system pretty well.
And
Does he fit in?
yeah. Yeah, and I wasn't involved in your draft coverage, Bobby. But that's kind of where I was at with it. Is I believe that you drafted. My takeaway is you drafted older players because you're expecting them to play early, because you have to start putting these guys in. You don't necessarily want 2 and 3 down, 3 years down the road projects. You just want to get a little cheaper, and you want to play and develop some of your own players, so you're not always having to fill out your roster with veterans and veteran minimum guys and this and that. You want to see what you can develop internally. So I think they're going to play. I think you'll see some minutes out of those guys.
Yeah,
I'm
and
hoping.
even
I don't know about Watson, but yeah.
Pick. Yeah, the second round pick Watson's going to be interesting.
But he's also another 23-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to see how he looks next month at center, especially. Is he actually a center? It's going to be the question with him, because I don't think you need 4 minutes from a guy who can't really shoot too much. So he's interesting. Shireman's really interesting. I love the pick, John. He's obviously a guy who was on my board, and it's just really exciting as an offensive skill set, and looks like he can actually grow a little bit in terms of some of the stuff he does. Defensively, is he going to fit? I don't know. Similar question we had to Hauser, but there's a more diverse skill set there than even Hauser had. So that's really exciting what they got there in him. And looks like it's going to be a pretty exciting summer league too. All the guys we're talking about right now, Walsh, Kada, Shireman, Watson, all those guys, and even maybe JD Davison and Drew Peterson are going to be on that summer league team. So a big mix of guys here that you're just going to look at, see who's coming off a strong summer, who's improved through some of their work, and who might fit into a team that's going to rest a little bit more early next season and deal with that Porzingis injury, and just try to sustain and get through the regular season. And these guys, not now, but when we're talking about, John, 2026, you're going to need one of these guys at the bottom there to step up and take on a bigger role. Maybe it's Walsh, maybe it's Shireman replacing Hauser. That's all stuff you have to start to look forward to a little bit more. And you said it, John. You got to play them. That's the only way they're going to get better. It's the only way they're going to improve. It's the only way they're going to fit into the roster. And even last year, as good as it was, there's really no complaints about last season whatsoever, how great it was. They still didn't play the young guys quite enough through the course of the year. And you mentioned Walsh among them. So that's got to be a bigger priority this year. And we'll see how Missoula can balance that, because he wants to win every game.
We'll have both rookies. We'll have Walsh, Springer, I believe, also potentially.
He's on the roster
at Summer League. We'll see about Davison, but yeah, I think we're past that, but it doesn't matter. You definitely want to see what those guys look like. Bobby will be out there for Summer League. That's coming up. That's around the corner. A couple of weeks, we get to see some basketball again. It's very exciting, and I'm psyched to do that. We will do garden reports in and around those Vegas league games for sure, and take in some of the action and see what we see out of those guys. Should be a lot of fun. Want to let you know as well, if you do want to get involved, the new merch is here. Check it out, shop.clnsmedia.com for all the cool stuff. That's hard hats, t-shirts, garden report t-shirts, a name drop t-shirt. We've got more stuff coming to the site. We were really blown away by the support we got off of this, and hats off to Jimmy Toscano, who really helped kind of drive the bus in terms of getting that stuff out there. But I thought it was amazing how many people had that stuff out at the parade and knew it and were wearing it with pride. Some people wearing it to the garden watch parties was great. So check it out. If you want to jump in there, check out our merch store. Right now, all of these items, I believe, are available, and there will be more to come. We are going to wrap it up as free agency here has kicked off. As always with the Garden Report, you can count on us to jump back on here should there be any significant breaking news that impacts the Celtics in any way. We are going to continue doing shows throughout the offseason, news or no news. So we'll be back later this week as well, and make sure that we talk to you guys about what's going on here, and we'll probably do some themed shows and some different things here as we wait for some more action. As we said, Summer League in a couple of weeks will give us something more to talk about, but we'll definitely be back. Follow us on Celtics CLNS Twitter and our personal handles here for updates about when we are going to go live, but I would look for us maybe Tuesday or Wednesday this week, and then another one later in the week. I'm guessing, Bobby, a couple Garden reports with as much of the crew as we can get through the off season here. But again, we are kind of waiting around to see whether or not some interesting things to talk about are out there that we can go out there and have the conversations with you guys and provide some insight and chat with you guys. So again, appreciate you joining us here for the start of free agency. As we said, negotiating window is open. Celtics are open for business. They signed Luke Kornet. They're now 12 roster spots locked in for next season, with a couple of other of their own guys potentially to sign as well, and that could come in the coming hours. For all we know, we're not really sure what they're going to do here, but we'll see. Check out clnsmedia.com for Bobby's 3,000-page dissertation on why it was the right idea to keep Luke.
Do you like the move?
Fold. Yeah, it makes sense. And again, I'm guessing at a veteran minimum. Like I said, if you ran it back, I wouldn't be bummed out. I think the thing that you mentioned is the best idea. Get to 14 and then see what's left at the end of free agency. You don't want to rush into it. But I think with Porzingis being out, Luke gives them that insurance, that security blanket of a guy who did start 7 games this year, although a couple of them were late in the year in total garbage time, but who also slid into that second center role multiple times because you sat Horford and Porzingis in there.
Third center.
He's not just your third. You sat Horford and Porzingis on all back-to-backs all year long, one on one end, one on the other, and that thrust Luke into second center status 15 to 20 times during the year, and that's what you're going to ask for him here to start the season here, is coming in off the bench and providing minutes and doing what you can do. So yes, it makes sense. I don't think you're going to do better. If they add another one, I wouldn't be upset. But other than that, I think they're fine. Some wing depth would be great, but if they just brought back what they had right now, I think you're fine. And again, yes, you drafted somebody in the first round that can give you some minutes. You have Jordan Walsh. Maybe you can start to develop him. I'm not super, super worried about what they do in free agency here, and I don't think anybody's expecting a big splash. So, yes, I like the Cornet move, Bobby. We can agree on that. I like it.
All right. We shall see. Could be more to come today. If not, if there is, we'll jump on and do some news reactions over on Celtics All Access. So make sure you subscribe over there.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us. We missed you, but we'll see you again very, very soon. Until then, Bobby Manning, John Zanis. We will get Jimmy back in the fold later in the week, Josue and Sherrod as well. We will see you guys later.
Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game.
Phenomenal game.
Forfeit's out. I think it's an option. That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.